So when we got to Kazakhstan, it was really fun because, like I mentioned, my dad had figured out an apartment for us to be able to live in when we first got there, and I will never forget that apartment. In fact, sometimes when I'm in Kazakhstan, we'll go drive by there, and I'll even go by there and walk by the apartment. One of my favorite stories of that apartment is when we got there, I was doing homeschooling with my mom, and so often my sister and I would go outside and just play, and it was great because that was I think the best way to learn a language is to just go and be with people. Like, you have no clue, make friends, and just use your hands and figure things out, because you will learn very, very quickly by necessity. One thing, though, that came with our apartment is that there was this backyard, and it was interesting because it was sort of communal, but not really. Supposedly it belonged to our landlord who we were renting from, but I just remember that there were like cherries in the backyard, and there was a cherry tree, yeah, and a bunch of the kids would climb over the fence and steal our cherries, and I would get really angry and yell at them. I don't know why. I was just a kid, and a clueless, stupid kid. But it was funny because some of those kids became my friends. One of those kids became a very good friend of mine. His name is Tolik, and he became a part of our church, got married to a lovely young lady in our church. They now have a family. Try to keep up with him. He and I worked on IT-related stuff together in the church a lot. It was just really cool that we had this history of being kids together and him stealing our cherries, but then growing up together and learning a lot. I mean, we went through a lot, we learned a lot. He went through a lot of stuff with us at the church, a lot of different situations that were really difficult, that really kind of make you grow up and learn about life. And he and I got to go through this together, so we have quite a bit of commonality in our stories. I love him very much. Whenever I get a chance to see him or talk to him, it's great. So that was an aspect of our backyard. The other thing that I remember about that apartment, let's go into some more of the silly fun stuff just for today. And I know that I know I'm in the same shirt, but I'm doing multiple videos at times when I remember them. It's not all just day by day. Anyways, going back to it, this is a little embarrassing, but basically for a little while during my preteen years, I was I liked fire a lot. I don't like some of the words that get used to describe kids who play with fire, but I played with fire a lot. And I remember that because that's what we would do. So, okay, let me describe this for you. Our apartment building, the way that they would build the apartment buildings in Russia, in Kazakhstan, former Russia, would be that they would build them kind of in a square, and the middle of the area in between all the apartments became kind of like a little apartment square area where kids could play, and they like park cars. They'll build like storage spaces there and stuff. But for us, it was mostly for the kids to play. We had a playground, we had a ping pong table. That ping pong table, I played ping pong sometimes till like super late at night. We would string a light bulb and hang it above the ping pong table because they didn't have lights outside, and we would play ping pong till like 1 a.m. I remember we would out in that courtyard, I guess is a good word for it, we would take during the winter, we would take the slide, which was like this, they weren't nice plastic slides like in America where it's all like soft and everything. It was a hard metal slide, and because of that, in the wintertime, it would get really cold and freeze over. So we would slowly pour water down the slide throughout the day, and then at night it would all freeze. And the next day you have this really cool like ice slide, where you go down and slide way off on the ground. But that courtyard also was where I spent a lot of my time playing with fire and making fire and playing with matchsticks. And it's interesting. So here, I'll give it some perspective that's not so bad as just I was, a pyrotechnic and wanted to play with fire. It was more about the fact, like I've mentioned in the past, that you have less options. So in the States, that you have stuff to do. You have games, you have video games, you have toys, you have lots more to do. when we were out in that courtyard, there wasn't much to do. And so playing with matchsticks and playing with fire was just because we were bored. And so I remember different tricks that I learned with matches, different fun, crazy, stupid things that I did with matches and fire. And it was just because we were playing around as kids. I think it's interesting to see how kids will find things to play with, be it fire, be it ping pong, be it building things out of sticks and mud. I learned how to play a lot of card games because we would play a lot of cards, and I got pretty good at it. And it was a good time, actually. I know that some of that sounds like, to some people, would be like, oh my goodness, that's horrible, or oh my goodness, like, why would you ever do that, or why would you let your children do that? I'm like, to a degree, like, I love my kids and I'm happy that they have toys and lots of options of things to play with. But at the same time, sometimes I'm like, just go outside and play and run around. You don't need to have something that entertains you. You can learn, you can entertain yourself. You're a kid. It's one of the benefits of being a kid. Anyways, I'm rambling on about kids and options and toys, but let's just say that the courtyard in our apartment complex area was where a lot of fun things happened for me. A lot of friends were made and a lot of lessons were learned as a kid. And so we'll talk more about that later. Talk to you tomorrow.